What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Optimize You podcast. We are the podcast helping you optimize feeling and looking your best every single week. If you're new to the podcast, make sure you subscribe. If you're not new, make sure you share it with a friend, coworker, family member. We appreciate all the help. And now in today's podcast. All right, dude. So big question I have for you. We've both been doing this for a long period of time. What is your biggest mistake that you'd say you've made on your health and fitness journey?
A lot of them. The biggest one, let me think. That's a great question. So I'm immediately thinking of a couple that come to my head, but I'm like, I bet you I have some more that are going to come up too. But the first one that comes to my head is I'm a competitive person by nature. So both of us being former athletes, it's in our blood. Like, we're going to compete. And so when I was even when I was doing sports, I found how beneficial strength training and strength and conditioning specifically was for me to help enhance my performance on the field. I think where I took that and ran with it a little too much was I was very much so on the physical side of things. I didn't pay attention to nutrition. I ate like shit, especially being in, like, when you're in high school and transitioning into college too. It was just like, eat whatever's cheapest. You're broke, right? So like, eat whatever's cheapest, eat whatever you can get your hands on, eat whatever financial aid or scholarship's going to cover. Like, you basically just got, like, whatever resources were available to you, you ate. And so for that, I remember looking back, I was so concerned with like a certain body weight number, specifically with football. I remember in high school being like, man, they're only recruiting, fullback slash safeties that are going to be like 220, that run a 4.5 or faster. And so that I have to meet those numbers, right? And so, like, I would eat any and everything. I was a little bit shy of that. So I was trying to get, build my weight up to that, just eating crap, training my ass off. And I kind of took those same characteristics and habits when I was done playing sports, meaning like I would just try to hit a certain number, eat any and everything in sight, train your ass off, and keep your fingers crossed and hope you get there, so to speak. It was kind of like and I see people do that now today, right? But they do it in the opposite direction. They're like, I want to hit a body weight and, I want to lose weight. I want to hit some certain body weight, and I'm just going to train my ass off. Matter of fact, those are my best clients. Those are my favorite clients because they're me, right? I'm like, man, I was right there in your shoes. I'm the double day person. I'm the person training 6 days a week. Like, I'm going to do more cardio. I'm going to include more sprints. I'm going to turn a blind eye to my nutrition, and I'm just going to train my ass off. And by default, hopefully I look and feel all right and I get okay results, and hopefully this is it. And so there's a lot of guesswork. So I think one of my biggest mistakes was working harder than I should, like working harder than I really had to. Looking back now, I'm like, man, I was doing shit the hard way. And a lot of my favorite clients are exactly in those shoes. They're the people that are like, man, I've tracked before. I've done some sort of diet or nutrition plan before. And trust me, I don't have a problem going to the gym. Like, I'm there 3, 4, 5 times a week consistently. Chances are they've been doing the same thing, right? Like, we know those people too, but they don't have a problem showing up to the gym for themselves. I never had a problem doing that. When people are like, oh man, I don't have motivation and things like that. Like, I never had a problem with that. My problem was turning a blind eye to the nutrition piece and just taking it for granted and just going, okay, I'm young, I got a fast metabolism, I could get away with it. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, or when we need to, or when it becomes a problem. But for now, I'm just going to keep training my ass off and working harder. Work harder was always the mentality. So I think that was one of the biggest mistakes. And so I love being able to transition and explain that to my clients when they come on and they're in those same exact shoes. Those are the people that I work with the best, that are essentially outworking themselves and not seeing anything for it. They're not shy of the work. I, matter of fact, have to tell them to take a step off the gas a little bit. And then we spend way more time and put way more emphasis in the nutritional piece. And so that was my biggest flaw, or one of the biggest setbacks, or one of the biggest struggles that I had, or mistakes, I guess you could call it. But man, it was a learning curve for me. And I'm grateful, looking back in hindsight, that I struggled that hard in that way, and thinking that what I knew was the end all be all, and like, I'll figure it out. And so, yeah, I'm grateful for it, because now I put myself in a position and opened up this whole other chapter through the last decade of like, oh man, this is not only can I maximize my results and I can get everything that I'm pouring into from the physical side of things, like I can reap the rewards and benefits from it at a much faster rate too. And like everything just got accelerated and it like clicked for me. And then I was like hooked. I was like, okay, now I understand the nutritional piece thing and how important it is. And that's how literally going to help dictate and yield the results. All this physical stuff, all the busting my tail in the workouts and doing all that, it's very short lived. So, I mean, there's a ton of mistakes, but I think that's the one that stands out to me the most is like, if I were to go back and if I had the ability to fix one thing early on, it would have been that. It would have been pay more attention to making sure you're getting enough protein, making sure that you're prioritizing higher quality foods from a macro standpoint, but also from a micronutrient standpoint, and just fueling my body to perform. Because I'm looking back and like how much I left on the table, and I was just thought that, you know, busting my ass was the answer. It is, that's great, but you're only going to get your results. Your results are going to be dictated in which your adherence is to the nutritional piece. And we both know that obviously now, but you know, back in school and the performance days, I didn't, you know, I kind of turned a blind eye to it. I was kind of like, I don't know if the word's naive, but I was just like, I would just neglect it. I was just like, yeah, it's whatever. Like we'll just be badass and throw around heavy weight and be explosive and be powerful and be super strong. And we'll just do that. And then we'll look and feel good and we'll perform amazing, you know? So that's mine, dude. I mean, there are a lot of other things that I could probably come up with, but that's the one thing that stands out to me for sure. What about you, man? And real quick, what's the question that you asked again, so I can rephrase that?
No, it was just you answered it good. It was just like what your biggest mistake was, and I mean, I heavily relate with that answer too. That's one of mine as well. Not surprising to anybody. You know, we both athletes just struggle with the you know, competitive, you know, maybe addictive type personality with certain things. And I did that same thing where it was, and honestly, like what I felt like I was doing is like during the week I was dialed with my nutrition, and then the weekend is where things would go off the rails. But I was like so connected with trying to like outwork the diet. It was like almost like a chip on my shoulder for a long period of time where it was like, you know what, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we eat whatever we want, we drink whatever we want, and I can still stay in good shape, right? Because I'm crushing myself with cardio every day. I'm going on runs. I'm doing hard bikes. I'm doing like incline, like walks, incline runs, like all these things. And then I'm also working out on top of that, sometimes doing 2-a-days. It's like trying to do as much activity as possible. And I feel like that worked for a short period of time. And then it actually worked for a while, right? I would say like it worked for a while for me. Like it worked, right? It was like, it was suffice. I felt like my body was probably slowly getting worse, but eventually, you know, that it just kind of hits you like a ton of bricks, because it's almost like you just like that stress level just kind of, it goes like this, and then all of a sudden like it just overflows, and like maybe your sleep goes to shit, like you feel terrible, you get injuries quicker, you know, you're just wore down, and all this stuff happens. So like I relate so heavily with that. And I think mine is just, it was like that side of it where it was like, you know what, I did feel like I was super rigid with my plan during the week, nutrition wise, and throughout the whole week I was really rigid with cardio, weightlifting, with all of these different things. But then it was that weekend, that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, which I think a lot of guys especially struggle with, that just, it was off the rails. Like maybe there's no plan of attack anymore. There's like a, you know, oh, we're partying, we're doing this, we're having fun. And then it's like you wake up on Sunday, you wake up on Monday, you feel like shit. It takes you almost those 4 or 5 days until Thursday or Friday roll around to get back into where you're like, you know, my body feels good again. Like I finally feel good. And then you do the same thing again. And so it's like, it's just that constant cycle of just building yourself up, like through, you know, way too rigid of a plan that doesn't include favorite foods, that doesn't include like leeway or grace or whatever, only to go the complete opposite way over the course of the weekend and just ruin all of that progress. But, you know, really all of it was just a lack of balance. It was just living on both sides of the spectrum and not allowing myself to really like just live and enjoy. It was like consuming my headspace all the time, was like this body I want to get, working out more cardio, trying to do this and that, and trying to live for the weekend and set myself up for success there. And so that's kind of my long-winded answer to that as well.
Dude, that's exactly it though. I mean, you explained the vicious cycle so perfectly. That's exactly what it was. It was like party super hard on the weekends, or if we had games, and then it would like come back around to the beginning of the week. It'd take a couple days to recover, and then you're kind of just repeating the process. Like I would almost use workouts too, as like when we'd be doing training with the team, I'd always do like an extra workout. I have to do like a workout by myself. And it was always like, yeah, that chip on your shoulder mentality. Like I want to do a little bit extra to be a little bit better. But it was also to like, in a weird way, to like punish myself because I was, just being a piece of shit through the weekend. So it's like, well, dude, you deserve this. Like you need to outwork this. Like you had your fun. Like now you need to get in there and grind, and like, I look back at the process that we were doing, the cycle. It's just like, dude, you keep repeating this over and over and over. And essentially that kind of approach just has you break even the whole time. You're like busting your tail. Like, I'm looking back and like, man, if I would have put a fraction of that energy, intensity, and focus that I did into the physical side of things, trying to outwork everything, and just kind of shifted it over to the nutrition, like, man, I could work a fraction as hard as I was, and I would have yielded a way bigger output. I would have yielded a way more consistent output. But I mean, I guess it's just how it was, and I look back and I'm like, well, yeah, it's stupid. The other thing that came to mind when you were talking too is like an immediate mistake that I look back on, or things that I wish I would have transitioned to sooner, are getting help. So when I didn't know about the nutrition side of things, like today, it's a lot easier to get resources. But if I were to look back then, there were people that like in my immediate circle, coaches, things like that had the performance side of things down, but they also had the nutritional piece. And like, so my recommendation, and I wish I would have done this earlier, is like find somebody who is either educated in it. Like the worst is trying to dive down YouTube rabbit holes and try to figure it out yourself, because that was me too, right? I did that for years. But like find somebody that already has the answers, who's going to be extremely beneficial for you. If you could do something for them, some sort of trade-off, it doesn't have to be financial, but like, man, I would just be in their pocket as much as possible, just be right on their hip and just soak up as much as I possibly could and just do what they say. If it's somebody that you respect and you're like, man, they're educated, they're either a walking example, or the people that they have taught and coached are walking examples, and I see myself as like them, and I want to be on that level. Like, dude, just listen to them. Like cut through all the BS and go straight to the source. And then that would have been like a huge opportunity that I wish I would have took advantage of, because there were people in my life that had that knowledge and those skills, and I just didn't take advantage of it. I didn't seize the opportunity. And so I kind of had to take the hard route, figuring it out on myself, educating myself, trial error, over and over and over and over and over. And if people have the patience and the ability to do that, great. Like for me, I was like, this is going to be my career, so I'm going to see it through no matter what. But I think the 99% don't. And so the second they face that first hurdle of trying to figure it out on their own, they're going to find out how much like predicting bullshit is out there. And like, you're going to feel more lost than when you even started. So like, cut to the chase, like cut all the fluff out, go straight to the source, and just completely dive in. That would be my recommendation. That's what I wish I would have done. I unfortunately had to figure it out the hard way, but maybe that's not a bad thing for the position that I'm in right now. Who knows? But for people who are just like, they don't want that to be their career path, and they don't want to drag through the mud the whole time. Like there's a much faster way you can streamline that process. That's why we do what we do too, but I wish I would have took advantage of some of the coaches and people that I had around me, because I was around some super smart people, especially with like my strength and conditioning internship, like things like that, where I was around super knowledgeable people, where I dove in and I took advantage of that from the physical side of things and the physiological stuff. But man, I wish I would have, and I know they knew about nutrition too. We just really didn't touch on it, but like I had to figure that one out the hard way, dude.
Yeah. And I think what comes to mind there, for the people also that don't have maybe access to that, like for a while, I did a lot of YouTubing, right? And I think there's like a slippery slope to both sides there, because like I followed fitness influencers, which is, I would say, the wrong route to go a lot of times. Like, because a lot of times what you see with like the YouTube fitness influencers, there's some really good ones out there that, are preaching the right things and that are doing the things that they preach. But I think a lot of people are doing like crazily, like very, very drastically different things than what they're preaching. Right. And they like constantly, it's like that harder mentality, more mentality that we come from is what you a lot of times see with these guys. It's like 7 days a week in the gym, pushing hard. It's always like lifting heavy, doing this stuff. And I think that can just make the problem worse. And so like what I found is there's that side of things. And then there's there's a side of like the mind pump guys, right? Which that was one of the first steps for me in starting to fix this portion that we're talking about here with like over exercising and trying to do too much and neglecting the nutritional side of things is those guys listening to their podcast, watching their podcast, and starting to pick apart the stuff about like stress. And it's like, maybe you're overtraining. I never knew that was a thing, right? I figured that just more was good. It's like most things, not most things, but a lot of things I'd always just thought more was better. Like if you're working out 6 days a week, well then 7 days a week's better. If you're working out 7 days a week, well then adding another workout in some of the days is better. It's like doing more is going to do that. But then once I listened to them and they had talked about the symptoms of overtraining and like what you would feel. And I'm like, wow, I am run down. I am sleeping like complete shit. I do feel a lot more stressed. Like I am like, sometimes it's easier for me to gravitate towards these less quality foods. Like it's like I'm craving these things. A lot of these different, like getting more injuries, like in the gym, like the weights decreasing, all this stuff. Then it was like, well, maybe I should, because I know for a while they were preaching like 3 days a week full body, or some of them were. I think Sal was like huge on, he's like full body workouts 3 days a week. That's all you need. And I went from working out like 7 days a week, 6 days a week, sometimes 2 days, to jumping into that approach where I was like, you know what, I'm going to go the complete opposite side of what I'm doing and try to do 3 days a week full body. And I was blown away by the results. Like I felt so much better. Actually, my weight skyrocketed because I was actually recovering from the workouts that I was doing, and I was recovering from the day. And like it became easier to dial in nutrition. Like, and I had more free time to do other shit too. Like on top of that, because if you're living in the gym 7 days a week, like a lot of times when, I'm not saying like everybody's this way, but a lot of those kind of people are also in the gym for like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, right? Doing a lot of stuff, or like maybe taking a lot of time in between sets, like living at the gym, going back another time. And it just takes a lot of time when you don't need these crazy long workouts to be successful. You really just need to like be consistent with something and make sure that like at the forefront of your mind, you're placing recovery there, because recovery is going to be a huge aspect to that.
Yeah. And that's so huge. I mean, that came along with time as well too. I was like, I came up like, so my first reference, or some of my first references were like Mike Rashid and CT Fletcher and like the Bradley Martin, like all those guys, starting to first see them on the internet, like probably, I don't know, 8-10 years ago. Right. And so like their thing was the opposite, which was right up my alley at the time. It was like, there's like overtraining's bullshit, right? Like not looking back now, like these guys were obviously on some shit too. So it's a lot different mentality and approach. It's like they're recovering like nobody's business, right? Whereas like the average Joe, if they take that same approach, like overtraining's bullshit, like you ain't working hard enough, like there's no such thing. And so like I think that mentality in some ways made me a lot worse, right? Like it basically pushed me further down the slope I was already going. But yeah, shout out to guys like Mind Pump who brought a different perspective, and like soon as they came out and like they shared their thoughts and they shared their experiences, and like you said, they would say things that would be like right up my alley, and I'm like, shit, yeah, that's exactly what I'm experiencing. Maybe there is an alternative to this. And then like you said, man, I can't tell you, like I've bought in so much to the aspect of the full body training that not only do I do it personally, because I just get more bang for my buck, but majority of my clients, especially when they first come on, I programmed for them that way as well, right? You're just getting more work done. You allow your body to recover. The results have spoke for themselves. Like the amount of times that people have gotten stronger, healthier, better positions physically, mentally, all that just from doing a more limited amount of sessions, but incorporating full body has been phenomenal. So I'm right with you, dude. I encourage people who haven't tried those kind of splits. If you're still doing the traditional like back and buys, chest tries, like that's good, and it depends on your goal too and what you're trying to do. But if you're just somebody you're like, hey man, I just want to get in better overall health. I want to get stronger. I want to be in a more optimal version of me, and I kind of want to just be an overall badass, look good, feel good. If you haven't already, experiment with some full body training routines, at least like a 3-day or like maybe even 4-day if you're a little bit more advanced split. Instead of blasting one muscle group each and every single session, get a little bit of everything and break it down into like your movement patterns and things like that. We can dive super deep into that, but like if you just touch a little bit of each muscle group every single time you go into the gym, I think you'll be blown away at like you just said, dude, your ability to recover, your ability to progress, your ability to manage stress because you're not taxing any one individual muscle group completely to the max. You're not sore forever. There's so many benefits from it. And I think specifically people who are either training super hard right now and they feel like they are irritable, they don't get sleep, they're screwed from that standpoint. Try tapering it down a little bit and try the full body splits, and I bet you'd be amazed. And then those of you that are just kind of starting out and either you've done a training routine before, it's been a while, maybe you're just getting back into it, great way to start progressing right away is to include some full body training splits. Yeah. So I'm right there with you, dude. Like I've completely bought into that, so much to the point it's how I train personally now, and I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Well, I think that's good, and that's like this is a lot of good stuff here. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this one. We're gonna do a lot more like this as well, just with like past mistakes we've done and just kind of riff on it. And I think this is gonna resonate with a lot of guys out there who have done this in the past, or maybe you're currently this guy and you're struggling with, it's like, oh wow, I'm just not making progress, or like, I'm doing so much and like nothing's happening, or maybe you're on that side of things where it's like, oh, the weeks are great, the weekends suck, like, oh, I'm trying to trying to out train my diet, like all these different things. I think all of this advice can really help you there. And we'll talk more on the nutrition side. I know we didn't get into as much of the nutrition side, so it's more on the side of the workouts. And I think, understanding that less can be more in a lot of scenarios when it comes to working out, but also that every person's a little bit different. And so just because, something works for some person doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Maybe 3 workouts is perfect for me, but Matt, like four like full body workouts is like the perfect number for him. Like experiment with this. Like don't just take everything that we say like verbatim and need to feel like you have to do it exactly how we do it. Take the guidelines of, guess what, if you're doing a lot, maybe just tapering it off a workout or 2 throughout the week could change your recovery, could change your growth, could change like how you feel throughout the day, energy, sleep, all these different things. So hope you do enjoy this one, guys. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and week to give it a watch, a listen. If you like this, make sure all we ask is you share it with somebody you love, somebody who you think could benefit from it, friend, family member, coworker, somebody. And we appreciate you. Have a good rest of the day and a good rest of the week, and we'll be talking to you soon.